and explained it if I'd recalled it. I've tried to be honest about that and give you my best response, and did throughout all the testimony I've given. Ms. Lee.
You stand by your testimony. Thank you very much. Are you familiar with the names Eric Garner, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice? My question is, as I hold up the poster dealing with the report under your jurisdiction, Black Identity Extremists, it is interesting to me that you are opposing individuals who are opposing lethal force, similar to the attack on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King on COINTELPRO, but there seems to be no report dealing with the Tiki Torch Parade in Charlottesville chanting, "Jews will not replace us." Why is there an attack on black activists versus any reports dealing with the alt-right and the white nationalists? Can you answer that question quickly?
I'm not aware.
Are you planning on investigating that?
When was that report completed?
In August of 2017.
I'm not aware of, I have not studied that report.
I ask you to because it's an attack on individuals who are simply trying to petition the government in a redress of grievances. Let me move to criminal justice reform. We have found that mandatory minimums and over-incarceration has been the history of criminal justice. We were moving toward criminal justice reform, which you opposed as the United States Senator, and now you intend to return toward discredited Nixon-era law and order criminal justice policies going to make America great or not, or waste precious taxpayer dollars. Do you have any interest in rehabilitating those incarcerated, recognizing that mandatory minimums created the opportunity for over-incarceration rather than telling your prosecutors to prosecute on every single crime? Is there any opportunity to work with your office to deal with progressive ways of dealing with criminal justice reform at this time? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right?
I would just respond and say that Senator Durbin and I worked together to reduce the crack cocaine penalties some years ago. It probably remains the largest.
Will you pull back
single.
on
The time of the gentlewoman has expired. The witness is allowed to answer the last question.
Minimums?
I'm sorry.
Time of the gentlewoman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Bass, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Between 1956 and 1971, the FBI ran a counterintelligence program named COINTELPRO that was initiated by J. Edgar Hoover. COINTELPRO mainly targeted civil rights leaders such as Martin Luther King, and it's commonly understood that this was an abuse of its surveillance power in a manner to suppress a peaceful movement. So I would like to ask, Mr. Chair, unanimous consent to enter this report into the record, which is Black Identity Extremists likely motivated to target law enforcement officers. I believe earlier you said you were not familiar with the report. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't read it. I know some of the alleged targeting of officers by
okay, so I would
group.
like to know, and I'll ask you about that in a minute. So you are somewhat familiar with it. Who had the power in your department to order a report like this?
I'm not sure how that report got ordered. I don't believe I explicitly approved it or directed it.
Okay, so you haven't necessarily read the report, but you are familiar with the term Black Identity Extremists?
Well, I think so, yes.
So could you tell me what that term means to you? Do you believe that there is a movement of African Americans that identify themselves as Black Identity Extremists, and what does that movement do?
Well, it'd be interesting to see the conclusions of that report, but I'm aware that there are groups that do have an extraordinary commitment to their racial identity, and some have transformed themselves even into violent activists.
Are you aware of white organizations that do this as well? Given that white supremacy is well-documented, well-researched movements such as the neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, etc., are they white identity extremists?
I didn't follow that question, please, again.
Is there a term or a report on white identity extremists? You mentioned you were familiar with black people who identify with their racial identity.
Yes, but it's not coming to me at this moment.
Not coming to you?
It's
certainly a group such as the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes, and then the skinhead movements, but there's a racial identity white movements that have been identified for sure.
So has the FBI done a report on white identity extremists that are likely motivated to target law enforcement officers? Is there such
I'm not
a
aware
report?
of that.
Okay, are you aware of a group called the Sovereign Citizens?
I've heard that group, yes.
And I believe that the Sovereign Citizens is primarily a white organization that absolutely has targeted police officers and killed police officers. You're not aware of that?
I'm not aware of all their crimes, but I know they're a group that's known to have violent tendencies.
Could you name an African-American organization that have committed violent acts against police officers? Could you name one today? In this report, they name organizations from 30, 40 years ago, but can you name of one today that has targeted police officers in a violent manner?
I believe I could, but I would want to be to confirm that and submit it to you in writing. But I believe we had, within the last year or so, 4 police officers killed by a group that some have described as extremists.
So what has happened is that there have been a couple of incidents in which African Americans did kill police officers who were not associated with a black organization. And so one, for example, in Baton Rouge was associated with Sovereign Citizens, which is primarily a white group. So you should know that there's a lot of concern in the community, especially from organizations such as Black Lives Matter. By the way, would you consider Black Lives Matter a black identity extremist group?
I'm not able to comment on that. I have not so declared it.
So you should know that a lot of activists around the country are very concerned that we're getting ready to repeat a very sad chapter of our history, where people who are rightfully protesting what they consider to be an injustice in their community, which is their relationship with police officers, are now being targeted and labeled as extremists and are going through periods of surveillance and harassment. And so I would like to know, what is your department going to do to protect the rights of average citizens to protest if they have a concern about police officers?
This department will not unlawfully target people.
So if that's the case, then I would ask that you review this report, Black Identity Extremists Likely Motivated to Target Law Enforcement Officers, because I personally don't believe that any such organizations exist. The organizations that are referred to in this report are organizations from decades ago. And so I would like to know, what will you do to essentially roll back what is listed in this report? Because it's not accurate. Sir?
We will look at the report. I actually would be interested in reading it. But they usually do an excellent job, objective and fair, on those kind of reports.
Okay, well, just...
Time of the gentlewoman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Gowdy, for 5 minutes.
Hey guys, it's Nicole here, back on this Wednesday night. I hope you guys are all doing good out there, and welcome back to Nicole's View. So your white supremacist, country bumpkin, lying piece of shit, Attorney General Jeff Sessions on Tuesday was grilled, of course, about the whole Russian investigation, and some members from the Black Caucus and other black lawmakers wanted to grill Mr. Sessions over this black identity extremist write-up from the FBI. Shout out to the FBI, because you know they're listening to all our videos. So, hey, anyway, so we know Jeff Sessions is lying through his nasty, coffee-ridden teeth. Okay, you know he's lying. Suddenly, he has Alzheimer's. Suddenly, he doesn't remember being a part of this. But this is just white supremacy stand on code. This is all this is. So I'm reading this from abcnews.com, and it says, the 12-page FBI intelligence assessment written in August describes black identity extremist groups the FBI says are increasingly targeting law enforcement after police killings of black men, including Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. Foreign Policy first reported on the assessment, which drew outrage from some black lawmakers. Representative Karen Bass, a Los Angeles Democrat, pressed Sessions on the report, as you saw in the video, during an oversight hearing of the House Judiciary Committee, explaining that activists are concerned they'll be unfairly labeled for protesting. Do you believe there is a movement of African Americans that identify themselves as Black identity extremists? And what does that movement do? She asked. Sessions said he hadn't seen the findings of the report, but added, I'm aware that there are groups that do have extraordinary commitment to their racial identity, and some have transformed themselves even into violent activists. See, this is all made up on the fly bullshit. He knows what he's saying is pure bullshit. And they want to use Micah Johnson and Gavin Long to be a part of this imaginary Black identity extremist groups, okay? Because there is no such thing. As many of us has talked about this, although I didn't make a video about it because all I had to really do was upload a video about COINTELPRO. And you guys know what COINTELPRO was. It was basically to bring down any type of Black voice that was waking up our people to make changes in this country, and how they were all snuffed out one by one, okay? So this is their weak, pathetic attempt to make those a part of Black Lives Matter or any other movement that is demanding change, demanding those who go out and kill us and there's no justice. It is an issue when we're calling it out. And see, they don't like it. So now they want to round us up and proclaim that we're Black identity extremists and we're out to do harm and all this kind of stuff, which we know is a bunch of BS. It's a deflection tactic to get the attention off the real terrorists, which is the white identity extremists, you know, who are going around on their shooting spree rampages, killing people at music concerts, you know, going to school, shooting up all the kids and the people and the teachers, you know, the real terrorists, the real white identity extremists, you know, because suddenly, oh, they don't exist. In Jeff Sessions' disgusting, despicable, racist world, okay? So seeing this is just hilarious to me. And the fact that folks are calling them out on the bullshit is great, okay? We know the bullshit, okay? Nice try, but it didn't work, okay? Focus on your so-called mentally ill devils who are shooting up everybody. How about we start there? Okay? Now just imagine if there were Black people out there that were going around doing this. Man, overnight, okay guys, overnight, there'd be all kind of laws changed, all kind of gun regulations. Trust me. If the shoe was on the other foot and we were going around here shooting up people in mass numbers, okay, all in one shot, are you kidding me? And it's a bunch of white people that are shot? Please. Just stop the bull, because we know they don't give a damn if it was a Black person killing more Black people. But if it was the other way around, oh, please, are you kidding me? This devil has no business in any type of government position. This Ku Klux Klan member needs to be somewhere in the backwoods burning a cross, because that's all he represents. Damn lying ass devil. But anyway, let me know what you think about this video, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.
You make